Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to dive headfirst into a day that honestly felt like a political earthquake.
An earthquake.
Yeah, Donald Trump's second inauguration as the 47th president of the United States.
Ah, yes, of course.
We got a ton of live updates and analyses from CNN, politics.
Looking forward to it.
And let me tell you, it's a whirlwind.
I bet.
Executive orders,
Pardons. Oh, wow.
international relations.
Okay.
He even wants to rename a major body of water.
Oh, he doesn't waste any time, does he?
Nope, it's less of a honeymoon period and more of a hold on to your hats kind of situation.
Oh, can imagine.
Like, take the executive orders, for example.
Okay.
He revoked 78 of Biden's policies on day one.
78.
78. Immigration, climate change, federal workplace rules.
Wow.
You name it, he's reversed it.
To a complete 180?
It's like he had a checklist and was determined to tick every box before lunchtime.
He came prepared.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, strategy-wise?
Right.
Hmm.
Well, it's definitely a clear signal of intent, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. This rapid-fire approach, it really does suggest a carefully pre-planned agenda.
Like a blueprint.
Yeah, a blueprint for his vision of America.
Okay, and it's certainly got everyone talking. Especially those January 6 pardons.
Oh, right.
To pardon nearly everyone convicted, over 1,200 people,
Goodness.
including those who assaulted police officers.
That's a lot.
It's unprecedented, isn't it?
It's certainly pushing the boundaries of how the pardoning power has traditionally been used.
Right.
I mean, legally, of course, the president has broad authority, but pardons are usually reserved for nonviolent offenses.
Or cases with extenuating circumstances.
Exactly, yeah. This blanket pardon, extending even to those convicted of violent crimes, raises some serious concerns.
Yeah, about accountability, the rule of law.
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking about people like Julian Cater, who used bear spray against Officer Brian Sicknick, and Robert Palmer, who assaulted police with a fire extinguisher to pardon.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what implications this might have for future administrations.
Absolutely. It sets a precedent that
Yeah.
could be difficult to walk back.
Right.
Future presidents might feel emboldened to use the pardon power in, equally broad and potentially controversial ways.
Speaking of controversial, he also commuted the sentences of 14 members of the Oath Keepers and Proud Boys.
The Oath Keepers.
And Proud Boys.
Okay.
Who were convicted of seditious conspiracy, including their leader, Stuart Rhodes.
I see.
This isn't just vandalism. This is a charge that strikes at the very core of democracy.
Precisely. Releasing individuals convicted of seditious conspiracy raises really profound questions.
About national security.
Yes, about national security, the stability of our democratic institutions.
Right.
It's a decision that will undoubtedly be scrutinized and debated for years to come.
And then there's the whole TikTok saga.
Oh, yeah.
Remember all that talk about banning the app?
Of course.
First he was all for it, then he changes his tune.
He did, didn't he?
What do you make of this sudden shift? Especially given that he admitted to using TikTok himself.
That's where things get really interesting. It reveals the complexity of, decision-making at the highest levels.
Right.
On the one hand, you've got national security concerns and data privacy issues.
All right.
On the other hand, personal preferences and political calculations come into play.
So sure.
Is he genuinely concerned about children's access to the app?
Right.
Or is there, a political strategy at work here?
Okay. Well, he signed an executive order delaying enforcement of the ban for 75 days.
75 days.
Citing TikTok's popularity with kids. But honestly, TikTok's fate in the U.S. is still hanging in the balance. Is this just delaying the inevitable, or could there be other motives at play?
It's hard to say for certain, but this delay,
Yeah.
it definitely gives the administration more time to weigh its options and assess the potential fallout from a complete ban.
Okay.
They could be looking at a forced sale, trying to find a way to address the data security concerns, maybe even using it as leverage in trade negotiations.
Oh, interesting.
It's a high-stakes game with global implications.
Okay. Shifting gears to the international stage. Trump has made it clear he wants to end the war in Ukraine.
The war in Ukraine.
As quickly as possible.
Okay,
And plans to meet with Putin to discuss it.
I see.
This sounds a lot like his 2016 campaign promise, doesn't it?
It does indeed. And it raises a lot of questions about his strategy
Right.
and what he might be willing to concede to achieve a swift resolution.
Yeah, I mean, remember his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio,
Marco Rubio, yeah?
acknowledged that both sides would need to make concessions for peace.
They would.
But what those concessions might entail remains a mystery.
A mystery indeed.
There's a lot of ambiguity there.
Yes.
And speaking of shaking things up, Trump also announced a 25% tariff on imports from Mexico and Canada.
25%.
25%, starting February 1st. Talk about a bold move.
That's a big one.
What are the potential ramifications of this, both domestically and internationally?
Well, the economic consequences could be substantial, not just for Mexico and Canada, but for the U.S. as well.
Right?
Tariffs disrupt supply chains, potentially driving up prices for consumers.
Makes sense.
There's also the risk of retaliation from our trading partners, sparking a trade war.
Oh, nobody wants that.
No.
It's certainly a gamble. And it seems like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis might be taking a page from Trump's playbook,
DeSantis.
even down to the rhetoric.
Okay.
He's started using the term Gulf of America instead of Gulf of Mexico.
Gulf America.
Gulf of America.
Wow.
And an official executive order. It's a seemingly small change, but what kind of message does that send?
That's a fascinating detail.
Right.
While seemingly symbolic, it speaks volumes about a potential shift, more nationalistic America First approach.
Right?
Not just in policy, but in language itself.
Wow.
It's definitely something to keep an eye on, as it could signal a broader shift in U.S. relations with its neighbors.
On the domestic front, Trump decided to freeze those pending regulations that were affecting big banks.
The banks.
And no surprise, they're thrilled.
I bet.
They're even pushing for further deregulation.
Of course.
What do you make of this move?
Well, this signals a potential shift in the balance of power between financial institutions and regulatory bodies.
Makes sense.
It raises questions about financial stability and consumer protection.
Yeah, is this going to lead to a more volatile market or a resurgence of risky practices?
It's a development that warrants close monitoring, that's for sure.
And in a move that's guaranteed to spark a legal battle, Trump signed an executive action aimed at ending birthright citizenship.
Birthright citizenship.
This challenges the 14th Amendment,
Okay.
which grants citizenship to anyone born on U.S. soil.
I see.
Challenging birthright citizenship through executive action.
Yeah,
Highly controversial.
very much so, and likely to face significant legal challenges. It goes to the heart of what it means to be an American citizen, raises profound questions about the future of immigration policy in this country.
It's a highly charged issue, and this move is sure to ignite a firestorm of debate. And we've only just scratched the surface of all the actions taken on this first day back in the Oval Office.
It's true, it's been a whirlwind of activity.
It really has.
Setting the stage for what promises to be a defining period in American politics and policy.
A defining period, absolutely. It's amazing how much happened in just a few hours. I mean, he also revoked a bunch of Biden's policies, like covering everything from Cuba and West Bank settlements to AI and climate change.
Oh.
It's like he's systematically dismantling his predecessor's legacy.
That's a key observation. The breadth of these reversals is noteworthy.
What do you think is the reasoning?
Well, it spans foreign policy, technology, immigration, you name it.
Wow.
It suggests a concerted effort to, reshape the American landscape.
In his image.
According to his own vision, yeah.
One of the biggest reversals was formally withdrawing the U.S. from the Paris Agreement. Again.
Yeah.
This is a major international accord aimed at tackling climate change.
Right.
The U.S. pulling out could have a significant impact globally.
Oh, absolutely.
What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement, it's a significant setback for international climate action.
So a big step backward.
It signals that the U.S. is not prioritizing this issue at the federal level and could embolden other countries to follow suit.
Oh, interesting.
It's interesting, though, that some states have vowed to continue fighting climate change, even without federal support. It seems like they're determined to stay the course despite this setback.
That's a crucial point. It highlights the growing divide between federal and state-level approaches to climate change.
The chasm.
In a way, yeah. It suggests that climate action in the U.S. may increasingly be driven by these subnational actors. States, cities, businesses, so sort of fragmented approach emerging. Going back to the Russia-Ukraine conflict, you mentioned concessions earlier.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on Rubio's statement that both sides will have to give up something to achieve peace? What are the potential pitfalls of such an approach?
It's a delicate balancing act.
How so?
Well, ending the conflict, right? Preventing further bloodshed is a priority.
Of course.
However, any concessions made to Russia could be seen as rewarding aggression.
Oh, so it could backfire.
It could, yeah. potentially emboldening further expansionist ambitions.
It's a complex situation with no easy answers. Switching back to domestic policy, Trump signed an executive action directing agencies to provide emergency price relief to Americans. He mentioned things like reducing housing and healthcare costs. But the details are pretty vague. What do you make of this?
It appears to be more of a statement of intent than a concrete plan at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it acknowledges the concerns about inflation and the rising cost of living.
Which are very real.
Very real, yeah. But it lacks specific policy proposals, so it remains to be seen how this will translate into tangible action.
Okay, so lots of questions there. Remember that letter Biden left for Trump in the Oval Office?
Oh, yes.
Do we have any idea what it said?
Unfortunately, the contents of the letter remain a mystery. It's become the sort of symbol, hasn't it, of these unwritten traditions, unspoken understandings.
Like a secret handshake.
In a way, yes, that often accompany these transfers of power.
I wonder if it'll ever be revealed.
I wonder, perhaps one day, adding another layer of intrigue to this historical moment.
Imagine being Trump, discovering this letter while signing executive orders and fielding questions from reporters. It must have been chaotic.
Absolutely. It humanizes the process, doesn't it? It reminds us that even amidst all this, the pomp and circumstance,
Right.
that these are just individuals grappling with immense responsibility, the weight of history.
It's a good reminder that there's always more happening behind the scenes than we might realize. Taking a step back, what are some of the key takeaways from all these actions? What stands out to you the most?
I'd say the speed and decisiveness with which he has moved to enact his agenda.
It's remarkable.
It's striking. It points to a high level of pre-planning, a clear vision for his second term.
It's definitely not a wait-and-see approach. He's hit the ground running, and he's clearly not afraid to make waves. What are some potential consequences we should be watching for in the coming days and weeks?
Well, we need to pay attention to the reactions from Congress, the courts, and of course the American public. There will likely be pushback against some of these policies. It'll be interesting to see how the administration navigates those challenges.
And the international implications of some of these actions are also worth considering, particularly those related to trade and foreign policy.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the world is watching,
They are.
and his decisions will likely have ripple effects across the globe.
Indeed, the U.S. remains a major player on the world stage. And its actions or inactions can have significant consequences for global stability and security.
It does feel like we're at a turning point. I mean, with all these executive orders, pardons, and policy shifts, what's the message here? Like, where is he taking the country?
It seems pretty clear that he's doubling down on those core America First principles.
Retard.
Economic nationalism, a tough stance on immigration, skepticism of those international agreements, and, well, a willingness to challenge the norms, the institutions.
He's not exactly shying away from controversy, is he?
No.
It's like whether he's alienating allies with tariffs or sparking outrage with those pardons, it's almost like he enjoys the fight.
There's a definite sense of defiance there.
Right.
A rejection of the status quo. He's willing to take risks, bold actions to get what he wants.
It's a gamble, though, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. A high-stakes gamble. Only time will tell how it plays out.
It's going to be a fascinating ride. Probably a bumpy one, too. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into Trump's whirlwind first day back, what's the one question our listeners should be asking themselves? What should they be thinking about?
I think amidst all the immediate reactions and analyses, we need to think long-term.
About?
The lasting implications. How will this reshape the political landscape, the economy, America's place in the world? These are the questions we need to grapple with.
Big questions. Will this second Trump term just be a repeat? Or is this a whole new chapter? Are we entering an even more unpredictable era?
Who knows? Only time will tell.
One thing's for sure, we'll be here to break it all down every step of the way. Thanks for listening.